NASA's mission is to explore the unknown.
35 years ago, the Soviet Union launched the core module of the Mir station.
3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition.
These astronauts found themselves in life-threatening situations in the vastness of space, only to be rescued in the most dramatic ways imaginable.
STS-27 was the second launch after the accident, but we were attempting to be very much secret.
From daring spacewalks to nail-biting re-entry maneuvers, these real-life heroes faced the ultimate tests of survival. The cosmos threw its worst at them, but their incredible rescues will leave you in awe. Let's dive in. 1. The Apollo 13 mission. We've got the Apollo 13 mission, right? It kicked off on April 11th, 1970.
3, 2, 1, 0. We have commit and we have liftoff at 2:13. The Saturn V building up to 7.6 million pounds of thrust, and it has cleared the tower.
With astronauts Jim Lovell, Jack Swigert, and Fred Hayes on board, all set to moonwalk. But guess what? Just 2 days in, things went south, big time. As they neared the moon, an oxygen tank blew up thanks to some faulty wiring, tearing through the service module. This explosion knocked out crucial systems and sent their oxygen supply into space. Swigert wasn't playing when he radioed, "Houston, we've had a problem." Houston dropped everything to focus on getting these guys back home instead of moon landing dreams. Their lifeline? The lunar module Aquarius, which turned into a makeshift lifeboat. Originally meant for just 2 astronauts for 2 days, it now had to keep 3 men alive for 4 days in space, crammed, freezing, and on a severe water and power diet. Oh, and they had to jury-rig a solution to use square carbon dioxide scrubbers in round holes using whatever they could find, plastic bags, tape, you name it. After a nail-biting loop around the moon and a dicey re-entry, the trio miraculously splashed down safely in the Pacific on April 17, 1970. 2. Gemini 6A Crew. Astronauts Wally Schirra and Thomas Stafford were all suited up and strapped in, ready to make headlines in the Gemini 6A spacecraft. The clock ticked down to 0. The engines roared to life, and then bam, they shut down. Just 1.5 seconds in, the launch was aborted right on the launch pad. In that split second that could have turned into a catastrophic fireball, Schirra's cool-as-a-cucumber decision not to yank the ejection seat D-ring literally saved their skins. Because, folks, blasting off those seats meant possibly slamming into a whopping 20 Gs of force. Not exactly a walk in the park. It turned out that a mere dust plug left in the wrong spot was the pesky little troublemaker that stopped the show. But don't you worry, after a quick fix, on December 15, 1965, Gemini 6A was up, and away.
3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition.
Making a beeline for a historic meetup with Gemini 7 in the vast cosmic playground. 3. Soyuz 5 Crew. This tale of Boris Volynov, the cosmonaut from Soyuz 5, is a wild ride through space that almost turned disastrous. Launched on January 15, 1969, Soyuz 5 aimed to make history by docking with Soyuz 4, the first ever meetup of 2 crewed spacecraft. While his buddies transferred safely to Soyuz 4, Volynov was left to navigate Soyuz 5 back to Earth alone, and that's when things got gnarly. Just after retro-fire, a crucial part clung stubbornly to the spacecraft, forcing it to re-enter the atmosphere backward. Imagine being stuck in a tin can while the outside starts to burn up. The cabin was filled with smoke, and Volynov was tossed around with intense G-forces. Yeah, It was as bad as it sounds, but luck was on his side. The excessive heat and stress finally snapped the faulty parts off, flipping the capsule right side up just in time to face the fiery descent with its heat shield. Still, the cosmos wasn't done playing. The landing was brutally hard, smashing some of Volinov's teeth. Ouch! He ended up miles off course in the frigid Ural Mountains. With temperatures dipping to a teeth-chattering 38 C and rescue teams hours away, Volinov didn't wait around. He trekked through the snow to a nearby village to find shelter. 4. Soyuz 23 Crew. On October 14, 1976, the Soyuz 23 mission was all set for an epic space rendezvous with the Salyut 5 station. But things went sideways quickly. A glitch in the automated docking system threw a wrench in the works, forcing cosmonauts Vyacheslav Zudov and Valery Rozhdestvensky to scrap their plans and head back to Earth. Instead of a smooth touchdown, their capsule made a splash, literally into the icy grips of Kazakhstan's Lake Tengiz. Their spacecraft, now bobbing on frigid waters, became the first Soviet-crewed ship to land in a lake, turning their mission into a desperate fight for survival. Inside, the space heroes were freezing and scrambling to swap their spacesuits for something a tad warmer, all while rationing oxygen and silencing the heaters to save power. Night fell, temperatures plunged, and every breath they took was a countdown.
If they open the hatch, they'll drown. If they stay inside, they'll suffocate.
Drowning or asphyxiation, that's not much of a choice.
A blizzard hit like a beast, complicating rescue efforts big time. Helicopters? Nope. Boats? Fail. Finally, at the crack of dawn, a rescue squad battled through, hooked up to the stranded capsule, and dragged it to safety. After a harrowing 9 hours in the icy abyss, Zudov and Rozhdestvensky were out, cold and whipped, but alive. 5. STS93 Crew. Led by the fearless commander Eileen Collins, the STS93 crew faced a heart-stopping moment that tested their mettle right from the get-go. On July 23, 1999, Space Shuttle Columbia was all set to send the Chandra X-ray Observatory, a beast of a telescope, into the stars. But just as they blasted off, bam! 5 seconds into the liftoff, things started to go haywire. A major voltage drop hit one of Columbia's electrical buses. Imagine the tension as the main engine controllers for not one, but 2 engines just shut down. Thanks to some slick automatic switching to backup controllers, they kept climbing, but ended up orbiting a cool 7 miles lower than planned.
Columbia now has burned more than 2 million pounds of fuel and weighs half of what it did at launch.
Here's the kicker. The whole drama was due to a hydrogen leak in one of the engines, caused by a broken pin that decided to play pinball in the engine's nozzle. Despite this close call, the crew didn't just push through. They nailed their mission, deploying the Chandra X-ray Observatory and carrying out some top-notch science experiments. 6. Soyuz T-10-1 Crew. On September 26, 1983, cosmonauts Vladimir Titov and Gennady Strekalov were strapped in, all set for a sky-high rendezvous with the Salyut 7 space station. But hold up, just as the countdown hit the final beats, things went wildly off script. Out of nowhere, a fire ignited at the base of their Soyuz rocket. It wasn't just a little spark. We're talking a full-blown inferno, climbing up the rocket like it had a score to settle. Inside the capsule, the cosmonauts felt shakes and heard a crazy racket. At first, they thought it was just the wind. Wishful thinking, right? Turns out, they had an ace up their sleeve, an emergency launch escape system. This system kicked in just ticks before the whole rocket could go kaboom. Boom. The escape tower fired up, yanking them away with a force of 17 Gs. It was a wild 5-second ride that flung them about 900 meters up into the air. They landed, parachutes out, a safe 4 kilometers from what was now a fiery spectacle. And guess what? They were shaken, but all in one piece, even ready for a quick smoke to calm their nerves. 7. The STS3 Mission. NASA's STS3 mission, starring astronauts Jack Loosma and C. Gordon Fullerton, launched into the cosmos aboard the Space Shuttle Columbia on March 22, 1982. Their main gig was to push the shuttle's limits and run a bunch of science experiments. Sounds cool, right? Well, not everything went as planned. First off, they had a bit of a sunbathing mishap. The shuttle got a tad too toasty, causing the cargo bay doors to warp and not shut right. Talk about a hot mess. The crew had to wiggle the shuttle around just to even out the temperature and fix those stubborn doors. And if that wasn't enough, the toilet conked out on its first go. Talk about bad timing. Both astronauts got a dose of space sickness, and to top it off, they lost their comms link. Just imagine being stuck up there with a broken toilet and no one to talk to.
The first zero-gravity treadmill was used on STS-3. It was designed by astronaut William Thornton to simulate running in an Earth gravity.
Landing was another edge-of-your-seat moment. They were supposed to touch down in California, but thanks to an unforeseen circumstance, they had to reroute to New Mexico. Then, some fierce winds threw in a delay, forcing them to pull off a tricky landing maneuver they hadn't planned for. 8. STS1F Mission. Back in the hot summer of '85, the Space Shuttle Challenger was all set for what looked like a routine mission. The crew, a cool gang of 7, led by Commander C. Gordon Fullerton, were on board to do some serious science with the Space Lab 2 module. Sounds like a piece of cake, right? We'll think again. Things took a nosedive when they were about 5 minutes and 45 seconds into the liftoff. The Challenger's main engine decided to call it quits. Yep, it shut down because of some pesky sensor glitch in the fuel turbopump turbine. This was no small hiccup. It was the first and only time something like this happened while the shuttle was flying. Enter the heroes at mission control. With nerves of steel, they pulled an abort-to-orbit move.
Lead copy, stand by.
Flight Fido, abort ATO. Abort ATO.
Challenger Houston, abort ATO. Abort ATO.
This was like hitting the emergency brakes and coasting into a lower orbit than planned, but still safe. All thanks to some quick thinking with the Orbital Maneuvering System fuel. A special shout-out to Jenny M. Howard, the booster systems engineer who played it cool and stopped any more engines from bailing. Despite this heart-stopping start, the crew got down to business and nailed their experiments in life sciences, plasma physics, you name it. By the time they were done, the mission was stamped a stellar success. 9. STS83 Crew. Here's the scoop on a wild ride that happened back in '97 with NASA's Space Shuttle Columbia. They launched this mission STS83, aiming to do some cool experiments in space with their microgravity science laboratory. But oh boy, did things get dicey. Not long after takeoff, the flight controllers caught a glitch in one of the shuttle's fuel cells. These cells are super important. They make the electricity the shuttle needs. The problem? This particular cell was mixing hydrogen and oxygen in a way that could literally lead to an explosion. Yikes, right? Despite some nifty troubleshooting, the issue just got worse. According to the strict rules NASA follows to keep everyone safe, they had to shut that bad boy down. Running on only 2 cells meant they had to cut the mission short. Safety first, after all.
The mechanics officer reports landing gears down and locked. Main gear touchdown. The drag chute deploy.
10. The Shenzhou 10 mission. June 11th, 2013. 3 astronauts, Commander Ni Haisheng, pilot Zhang Xiaoguang, and mission specialist Wang Yaping, blasted off in the Shenzhou 10. Their mission? To hook up with the Tiangong-1 Space Lab, run some cool experiments, and beam a live science class back to Earth. Things went smoothly as they docked on June 13th and started their cosmic classroom sessions. But here's where it got dicey. On June 23rd, after saying goodbye to Tiangong-1, they tried to redock manually. Sounds simple, right? Not so much. This part of the gig required nerves of steel and some serious space piloting chops, which luckily they had in spades. They nailed it, despite the high stakes.
Shenzhou 10 represents a step forward from the phase of experiment to application. We need to have a fixed transporting system to facilitate further space lab studies and the building of a space station.
Fast forward to June 26th, and the drama wasn't over. Heading home, they hit a snag that could have turned their spacecraft into a fiery meteor. No joke. But again, thanks to their stellar skills and a rock-solid spacecraft, they pulled off a safe landing back on Earth in Inner Mongolia. 11. Hubble Space Telescope repair. The Hubble Space Telescope, launched in 1990, was all set to blow our minds with stunning cosmic visuals. But wait, there was a twist. Right after launch, they discovered the main mirror was flawed.
When Hubble's first images reached Earth, something seemed to not look quite right.
Yup, it had a spherical aberration, making all those space pics blurry. But don't worry, NASA had a game plan. Enter the first servicing mission, STS-61, in December 1993. These space heroes went up and pulled off not 1, but 5 spacewalks to fix the flawed mirror with some high-tech optical gadgets. And guess what? It worked. Hubble was back in action, clearer than ever. 12. The Soyuz TMA-11 mission. Imagine being blasted into space with everything going smoothly, just like in the Soyuz TMA-11 mission back in 2007. Commander Yuri Malenchenko, flight engineer Peggy Whitson, and spaceflight participant Yi So-yeon were cruising up to the International Space Station. But fast forward to their return, on April 19, 2008, things took a dramatic twist. During re-entry, their spacecraft hit a major snag. The service module goofed up and didn't separate like it should have, tossing them into a wildly steep, ballistic re-entry. This isn't your average thrill ride. We're talking about crushing G-forces up to 10 times what you feel on Earth. They ended up landing a whopping 295 miles off target in some remote part of Kazakhstan, way off from where they were supposed to. The capsule's interior was filled with smoke while being shaken like a martini. Not exactly a smooth touchdown, right? 13. The Gemini 8 mission. On March 16, 1966, astronauts Neil Armstrong and David Scott were on the Gemini 8 mission, aiming to achieve the first-ever docking in orbit. Things were going smoothly. They had just docked with the Agena target vehicle when, out of nowhere, their spacecraft started spinning wildly. Seriously, it felt like something straight out of a thriller movie. At first, they thought the issue was with Agena, so they undocked, but that only made the spinning worse. It turned out that a rogue thruster on their own spacecraft was stuck on, sending them into a dizzying spin.
Neil realizes that the only way he's going to stop the spinning is to use the big thrusters.
The big thrusters are meant only for re-entry, but Armstrong has to engage them to wrestle Gemini 8 back from the brink.
Imagine trying to focus on your instruments while spinning that fast. Just thinking about it makes you feel queasy. 14. The Mir Space Station. On February 24th, 1997, aboard the Mir space station, everything seemed normal until suddenly a fire erupted from an oxygen-generating canister. Thick smoke billowed out, engulfing the station and blocking the crew's way to the escape vehicle. Talk about a nightmare scenario. With 6 lives on the line, including Russian cosmonauts and American astronauts, the stakes couldn't have been higher. The crew, in a frantic scramble, slipped on protective masks and grabbed fire extinguishers, battling the inferno for what must have felt like an eternity. 14 intense minutes to be exact. The crew were trying to fight a fire in a cramped space where there's no outside to escape to. It was like something out of a sci-fi thriller, but way too real for the crew who lived through it. 15. The SpaceX Crew Dragon Demo 2 Mission. On May 30th, 2020, SpaceX made history with the Crew Dragon Demo 2 mission, launching NASA astronauts Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken straight to the International Space Station from US soil. The first manned launch like this since 2011.
On behalf of the entire launch team, thanks for flying with Falcon 9 today. We hope you enjoyed the ride and wish you a great mission.
We would like to welcome you aboard Capsule Endeavour.
Things on the ISS were pretty chill, with the astronauts doing spacewalks and all the science-y stuff for 64 days. But man, the real action kicked in on their way back to Earth. On August 1st, these brave souls detached from the ISS, and that's when their wild ride home began. Imagine plunging through Earth's atmosphere, feeling like a baseball bat smacked the back of your chair. That's what Behnken said it felt like. And just when you thought it was all over, as they splashed down safely in the Gulf of Mexico, there was more drama. Despite Coast Guard warnings, a swarm of private boats zoomed in close, like they were part of some ocean race to get a glimpse of history. 16. Soyuz 18-1. On April 5, 1975, 2 cosmonauts, Vasily Lazarev and Oleg Makarov, were strapped into their rocket, all set to zoom off from Baikonur Cosmodrome to the Salyut 4 space station. But guess what? Just as everyone was counting on a smooth liftoff, the universe decided to throw in a twist. At T+295 seconds, just when you'd expect all systems to be go, the rocket stages got all tangled up instead of separating. Talk about bad luck, right? But hold up, here came the Lifesaver. The launch escape system kicked in like a superhero, yanking the crew capsule away from the doomed rocket with a gut-wrenching 21 G's force. Yeah, that's not a typo. Our cosmonauts were in for the ride of their lives. 17. Space Shuttle Atlantis, STS-27. It was December 2nd, 1988, and Space Shuttle Atlantis blasted off with a super-secret payload for the US Department of Defense. The crew consisted of a lineup of space heroes, Commander Robert Gibson, pilot Guy Gardner, and their ace team, Richard Mullane, Jerry Ross, and William Shepard. But just 85 seconds into the flight, something wild happened. A chunk of insulating material peeled off a solid rocket booster and struck the shuttle right on its side, damaging the heat-shielding tiles.
During ascent, there was a possibility some tiles had been damaged on the undersurface of the space shuttle.
Talk about a rough start. And the kicker? Nobody noticed the damage at first. As they orbited Earth, the crew used their trusty robotic arm to check out the damage, but they were squinting at encrypted grainy images because of the top-secret mission. They discovered that over 700 tiles were wrecked, and one was totally gone. Commander Gibson remained cool about it, saying, "No use dying, all tensed up." 18. The Soyuz MS-10 mission. It was October 11, 2018, and 2 brave souls, Russian cosmonaut Alexei Ovchinin and NASA astronaut Nick Hague, were strapped into the Soyuz MS-10, ready to shoot up to the ISS. The scene was set at Kazakhstan's Baikonur Cosmodrome. Excitement was in the air But just 2 minutes post-liftoff, boom, things went haywire.
Emergency booster 2 minutes 45 seconds. The failure of the booster.
The rocket flubbed during the crucial stage separation. A rogue side booster didn't get the detach memo and smacked right into the core stage, triggering a malfunction. Talk about a heart-stopper. But here's where it got intense. The Soyuz's safety system snapped into action, detecting the hiccup and triggering an emergency abort. Rockets on the abort system fired, yanking the capsule away from the chaos. 19. The Soyuz-33 Mission. Back on April 10, 1979, the Soyuz-33 mission was all set to make a routine docking with the Salyut 6 space station. On board were Commander Nikolai Rukavishnikov and Georgy Ivanov, the very first Bulgarian to shoot for the stars. But just as they were closing in, bam! The main engine went off during a critical maneuver. The techies figured out it was the pressure sensor acting up, shutting down the engine to dodge a potential blow-up. This left our space duo in a real pickle, floating aimlessly with no way to latch on to the station. Now, with their options running low, Mission Control in Moscow had to think fast. They decided to gamble on the backup engine for a shot back to Earth. Super risky though. If this engine flopped, Nikolai and Georgy were basically going to be cosmic castaways. 20. 2 NASA astronauts are stuck in space. Astronauts Barry Butch Wilmore and Sunita Suni Williams are stuck floating around up there because guess what? Boeing's Starliner can't get them back home to Earth. They shot up into the cosmos on June 5th, aiming for a quick 8-day stint at the ISS. But here's where it gets spicy. The Starliner is now throwing tantrum after tantrum. We're talking helium leaks, 5 of them. Dead thrusters? Yep, another 5. And let's not forget a moody propellant valve. Thanks to these hiccups, NASA keeps pushing their return ticket. Now, maybe eyeing July 6th. That's a whole month out there instead of a week.
I feel confident that if we had to, if there was a problem with the International Space Station, we can get in our spacecraft and we can undock, talk to our team, and figure out the best way to come home.
The root of this cosmic headache, a propulsion system that's just not playing ball, overheating thrusters and all. Meanwhile, our space duo is keeping busy, tinkering with the plumbing and running tests on Starliner, which can hang out docked for 45 days or 72 in a crunch. Which rescue story amazed you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. We'll be bringing you more incredible space adventures soon. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.